are listening to Kaisers Kastle.
Hey folks, welcome to Kaisers Kastle. Hopefully you guys are all chilling out. Got a nice cup of coffee, nice hot tea. If you wanted to get a little bit of adult invibation, please feel free. Take a big seat on my big orange couch. All 93 of you on my page, and those of you on Facebook land. I have a guest tonight, Mr. Lewellin. If he wants to give his first name, he may do that. He's the host of the Cold War Cast. You can find it on YouTube, and you can also find it on thecoldwarcast.com. Is that not correct, sir?
iTunes.
iTunes. Okay.
And then, yep, and then coldwarcast.com.
Okay, awesome. And as I always say, my guests that I have on, they don't agree with me politically, but I find value in what they have to add. And it's always a lot more fun having another person instead of me just talking into this little mic all by myself. Isn't that right, my friend?
That's right. It's always easier with another person.
Mm-hmm. The flow of ideas flow. So what we're going to talk about tonight, the old Billy Joe lyric, Cold War kids were hard to kill, right? Under their
That's
desk
right.
in an air raid drill. Anyways, we're going to talk about those days and duck and cover. I am watching my chat, so if you guys have anything to add on this live stream, I'm in my chat on YouTube. I think we should just jump off with, this is pretty timely with what's been going on lately, isn't it, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of talk about nukes flying and missiles flying right now, and it kind of feels like we're in a new Cold War.
Yeah, this one seems to be a little more hot than cold lately, doesn't it? Almost like we're back in, what was that, 61, 62?
Yeah, the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the thing that's kind of weird about this is I don't think most people understand the stakes.
Yeah, they don't.
Whereas back then everyone knew that, the world could end if things kicked off. Now I'm not sure what people think.
Yep. One of my subscribers, Willie Burger, said, "My read, no escalation in Syria." He may be correct, but you have to understand, and this is the thing that nobody's looking at, it's not like Cuba in some ways. It's not 90 miles off our coast, but it is Russia's only warm water port besides Cuba, and it's the closest one because most of their ports are covered in ice. And even the Ukrainian ports, for several months out of the year in the Black Sea. And so that's an important thing that people don't understand is Russia will go to war over this.
Yeah, and there's oil, too, to talk about their pipelines. That's important there in Syria.
Oh, yeah.
And really Russia would lose face.
Oh, yeah.
If they allowed us to just kind of take this over and do our thing there.
No, I totally understand and agree. Putin, look, here's the thing. I said this earlier on my own little thing, and it was just a primer pretty much for tonight. I said I like the fact that Putin has balls that clank when he walks, and I also like the fact that so does Trump. But the problem is with Bolton we no longer have a moderate voice. And
no.
Yep.
I mean, I know personally I voted for Trump, and one of the reasons I did vote for him was because I thought he would be a cooler head in this and would have better relations with Russia. I think that's important. Right. And I thought he would be the guy for it. I thought Hillary Clinton and really Bernie Sanders too, although everyone knew he wasn't going to win, basically promised us a war with Russia. And with Trump, it felt like there was the possibility to, not have a war with them.
Right. And the thing is, I mean, Trump, with the first time this happened, and it's almost been it has been a year, almost to the month. The last time the white helmets threw up their video and caused epic panic, and it reminds me. See, this is awesome. Mr. Lewellin has the experience, the book knowledge, and everything, but I lived through this era, and it reminded me of the Kuwaiti girl that went up in front of Congress under Bush Sr. talking about babies and everything getting thrown in the streets. And then we find out that was a fraud. This is after the Cold War was over, brother. And
yeah, it was.
Yes.
Oh, was that when they were saying that the Iraqi troops are taking them out of the incubators? Yes. And I remember hearing and believing that. Of course, I was in elementary school at the time. Yeah, but I remember hearing that.
It shocks the Western sense because we're not like that. Even in the war, we don't want to see that. But this whole gassing, it echoes something from that last time we found out that that's all al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda affiliates that did that, the white helmets, the last time. So we know this. And Russia said, just like they said when, what's his name, got gassed with his daughter, wherever it happened. I mean, I've heard like 5 different stories from the UK. And you see the UK, you see France, you see the deep state, all wanting to jump on war right now, and they're leading us into, and what did the UK do? They sexed up the dossier for the first Gulf War, then they or for the second Gulf War going into Iraq, and then they sexed up the dossier on Trump, and the deep state's leading us right back into this crap again. And it's the same video from the same people. They're just not wearing the white helmets, and we don't even know if that video was taken from the last time they pulled this crap. And we know they have hostages there, and if they have hostages, are they going to use those hostages as props like they did with, what was his name, Amir or whatever his name was, the kid that they had, Dust Boy, that's what they called him? Yeah,
I remember that. See, the thing that gets me about this is, why would Assad do this?
He's winning.
If he did. Yeah, they're winning. And, if they say they did this to some helpless women and children, like, why would he just do that? Like, there's, if there was like a real military target and they said Assad did that, like, maybe you would, but like think that could have been a possibility, but just, I don't know, gassing women and children, like just because, like while the world's watching him, it's like, come on, think of a better story.
Yep. I'll tell you what, man, Pirate Radio's chiming in. Yeah. White helmets are fake as shit. And the neocon agenda, fool me once. Yeah, no, I get it. And so does Mr. Lewellin. But the thing is, policy is being driven by emotion, and it has been, Woolly Burger. I'm answering your question because that stuns the senses of Americans. And I remember the letter writing campaign before I went to the first Gulf War, when the little girl from Kuwait, she was a teenager, got up on TV. And I remember April, I believe her last name was Gillespie, who was the what do you call that? The ambassador to Iraq, going to Saddam Hussein saying, it's an Arab matter. We have no problem with it. That was on after August 2nd on the invasion. And by August 7th, 1st Marine Division, which I was in, were there lock, stock, and barrel. I was with 1st FSSG Military Police Company, and I was standing on the ground in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So emotion does have something to do with policy. Anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Mr. Lewellin was also a former Marine, so you can speak on some of this too, brother.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, emotion does drive it. We talked about the one about a year ago where we launched the missiles at Syria. I remember that Donald Trump kind of sold it up a little bit, talking about Ivanka.
Yeah.
Like, saw the pictures and like, oh, it brought Princess Ivanka down to tears. And I don't know. To me, it seemed a little too theatrical. putting it that way, like coming from Trump. But yeah, I don't know. This history definitely rhymes. Gulf of Tonkin,
Yep.
the Maine, take your pick throughout history. There's all kinds of events like this that are a little sketchy and
The Liberty.
the Liberty, that too.
Yeah.
That didn't put us into a war though, I guess, but same idea.
Yeah, they tried. They were blaming it
Yeah.
on the Egyptians at first.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right.
know?
Yeah. They tried to get us into it, yeah.
And yeah, Willie Burger, you're right. In a perfect world, it doesn't. But the thing is where we're going with this is at least Trump the last time bombed an airfield with nobody there. Now he's talking about hidden Russians, and we already had our little dust up with the Russian contractors. And me being a contractor, I understand. Though I've worked with Ukrainians and Russians and Poles and other people from the different stands, Kazakhstan, all those places. I was at Camp Delta in Iraq in 05, in 06. I was also in Mosul. But Camp Delta was nothing but Eastern Europeans. The same with Ras Al. Why am I mind dumping? God, I hate this. Is boomer tech, guys. This is what you're getting. It was oh shoot, rooftop. We were there. Oh my goodness, at Diwania, Ras Ad Diwania.
Oh, okay.
And that was old MSR Tampa. Were you in Iraq or Afghanistan?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I was in Iraq. Yeah, I know Tampa. I was in Mahmadiyah,
Oh, okay.
which was intersection of Jackson and Tampa, basically.
I know right where you were at.
I spent quite a bit of time. They would send us out to Tampa for, like a couple weeks at a time, doing like checkpoints out there.
Yep. Because the Iraqi police, before we got there, what year were you
there? 2004, 2005.
Oh, so you were there before me and then while I was there.
Yeah, so yeah, we chewed the same dirt.
Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah. Would they call it the like the salad bowl or something like that, or like the intersection of those two? They had some name for it. It was like the mixing bowl or salad bowl or something like that. But
yeah, they called it salad bowl. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then Al Rashid was right there,
Yeah.
that little town there. So yeah, that was my old stomping grounds in Iraq.
Yeah, in Iraq, I was training our Iraqi police at the time, and me and 17 others. I mean, it wasn't just me, and we were handling all their stuff, and you could see the change after we started doing that with the Iraqi police. They went from being unreliable to we pretty much had pacified. And if you remember Camp Delta, we were only a few kilometers away from Iran, the Iranian border.
Oh, okay.
So that was the old air base that Saddam. I talked about it in my podcast today about when we found stuff that was not, there was no weapons of mass destruction even though we found it. So
right.
Cover-ups are the thing, but just like this, the white helmets are doing this again, and this brings it back to the Cold War. We can go down through the Liberty where they tried to do something. False flags started with ships. I'm glad that Pirate Radio podcasts are on because they're on the Robin Hood tonight. And yes, YouTube is not blocking your comments on my post, Johnny Canuck. So you guys can comment all you want. Please feel free. But the Robin Hood, that pirate ship that we all like to listen to, that's where false flag started. They would put the flag of whatever ship, that they were going to go board on their masthead, and then they would go attack it. That's where false flag came from. So, no, I'm seeing everything posting right here, Johnny Canuck.
Yeah, I see it too. I'm watching the feed too. Yeah.
So you're not being blocked on my page for whatever reason. So anyway, so there's a little back history. So these people that say false flags are conspiracy theory and muff fake, you actually need to do some research and see that there is always a grain of truth to every conspiracy theory. And once a conspiracy theory is proven correct by the facts, Look at my post or my vlog where I talk about, it's a two-parter because I had an emergency call, but look at my post on evidence, how to get it. And with the agent that was attacking the person in the UK and this agent, Russia's done one thing: send us, if it's ours, then send us some of it so we can do a test on it. And they're not doing it for either of them. That's why this needs to be really questioned. In the Cold War, we used to do that. Now, you can talk on that with... here's an example. November 9th. I remember this. I was 11 years old. And November 9th is my birthday. That's why I remember it. I have a twin sister.
Oh.
And it was 1979. We almost went to war. Nuclear war with Russia. Because of a war game that went live on NORAD. So, that's a fact.
Yeah.
I mean, that happened. You probably know all about it. Who was the player behind it? It was Z-Big. He was the final person to get the call, and he was about to say launch, full launch, because they said it was 2,000 missiles, and it was narrowly avoided.
Yeah, there's quite a few little stories like that where people were put in situations like the submarine commander in the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Soviet one, that by his orders, he should have launched, atomic torpedoes at American ships, but decided it wasn't the right time for that and averted a crisis then too. So,
yep.
So yeah, there's probably all kinds of things, we'll never know about too, where incidents could have happened and cooler heads prevailed. So
that's correct, man. Yeah, it's Z-Big Brzezinski. I just call it Z-Big because I figure everybody knows. And he's, by the way, a liberal that was a big war hawk. So these people that keep saying, I like just saying it just for the shock value. Liberals were always anti-war, but not always. They've always had their little war hawks too. Just like Clinton. Clinton, you're exactly right. Clinton, if she was in office right now, I wouldn't even want to think about what our lives would look like right now. A dystopia.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how the paradigm's kind of shifted on that. I see a lot of liberals right now saying things about basically, really beating the war drums about Russia, talking about traitors within our country. It's a little bizarre, to be honest, but
yeah, it's true.
It's just things that, typically you would have expected from the conservatives, say like a generation or so earlier, but just kind of as a political stereotype. But I don't know. I see that kind of hawkishness a little bit more on the left right now.
Yep. I see that Johnny Canuck said he's a dead neocon. He was never a neocon. He was a libcon. Or a neoliberal would be a more profound way to look at it. You have to remember, Rand Corporation may be the Republican one. I can't think of the corporation now off the top of my head that is the liberal version of it. It's some policy institute. I can't remember. I think Z-Big actually founded it. Was one of the founders of it with Rockefeller money. I can't remember the name of it. Daggone it. It'll come to me.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you said it, I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's right, yeah. But
something Policy Institute. Oh, man. Anyways, let's go off that, and it'll probably pop in my head during the talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it great getting old?
I'm getting there.
Well, yeah. You're a few years younger than me. But the good thing is that as we're seeing this, we've gotten to a point, and I think the American people have actually, to where we're understanding the difference between a false flag and being able to spot it quick enough. Even within our own country, and I talk about that on a couple of my little vlogs. Things I know were false flags or trying to start something. And you're seeing it now, and you're still seeing it now. The vilification of people on the right, it's constant. Yeah. And the left, at least in our country, are the ones that always start the mayhem. And Europe, it seems that way too. What's your thoughts on that?
that yeah, the right seems to get a little bit more shade thrown its way, I guess you would say. I don't know if it's necessarily the left that usually starts it. I don't know. To me, there's like this kind of middle between left and right, like the globalists, I guess you would say.
Yes.
That sometimes it's kind of hard to draw a real distinction between them.
I would agree.
But it's like, I mean, you think of, say, within the American political system. At this point, what's the difference between Paul Ryan, Lindsey Graham, and Dianne Feinstein? What is the difference between these people?
I agree.
And it just seems like kind of outside of that. I don't know, that very strict two-party thing. Yeah, maybe that would be the target, but.
Yep, I agree. I mean, look at Kennedy. People
Mm-hmm.
always talk about this. No, I'm not talking about Teddy, the swimmer, Kennedy. Thank God the movie Chappaquiddick came out, because that's showing what really happened during that time. But Kennedy was really the last decent, in my opinion, Democrat president. And he was a classical liberal. I'm not a fan of classical liberalism. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
nobody has to agree with my politics. It's and I'm not even going to bring it up. But I'm not a fan of classical liberalism because it always leads to the same place. But Kennedy dealt staunchly and harshly with the people that were with Russia, the Soviets, the communists.
Yeah.
Whereas Ted Kennedy, Bernie Sanders, people forget, he spent his honeymoon in Russia and in Cuba, and it was a workers' paradise. And yeah, the globalist will always go after both sides, and that's why the policy institutes. That's why I rail against having civilians. Now, Mattis, you have experience with Mattis as well as I do, if you were there
Yes.
during that time. And General Mattis, he is a calming voice. A soldier, a Marine, somebody who's been on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
even a Navy guy or an airman, they're going to have more of an introspection as to what war looks like, what collapse looks like for a country. And so civilians being advisors, national security advisors like Bolton, look, the man himself I can't say too much bad about, but he is a neocon. That's a fact.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's where his worldview comes from. And these corporations that develop policy, just like Z-Big, there was an epic talk with him. There's one guy, but see, he was in the military too, and why am I mind dumping his name? I shared on one of my vlogs where it was him, Kissinger, Z-Big, Kissinger, and I want to say Crow. That's not it. All three of them were talking with Charlie Rose, and I can't believe I can't remember the guy's name, but I found that man actually came from a more realistic point of view, and that's the kind of thing that we're desperately in need of. And he was there for Reagan and Bush Sr. So I'm sorry I'm mind dumping his name, but if you've read the book, what was it called? The Pentagon Papers, I think it was, from the Gulf War.
Okay. No, actually, I haven't.
Yeah, that one will explain who this guy is. He was the national security advisor for Bush Sr., if I remember right.
Okay.
So just something to put on a reading list if you guys want to see. But this guy, I honestly thought was the most mellow of all three commentators with Charlie Rose. So let's get back to the Cold War. This is enough. Somebody asked, whose side is McCain on? Yeah, you're right, Mr. Lewellin. Not ours. That's correct. Willyburger, great question. We're on our own side, and it's been made very clear through the deep state being somebody who is a former Fed, I can tell you, even during that time, the SES, Special Executive Service, that is the true deep state. You're seeing it now in action. I don't want to get into the back issues, but they are a problem and they need to be dealt with. I honestly think DOJ, here's a question for you, and this will go back to the Cold War. You can even bring this up you can see the same things except a little more tweakish where it wasn't so blatant. But since the 60s, you've seen federal agencies do this during the Cold War where they will go after the person, not the crime. The crime is what any investigator should be looking at. And that is what you're supposed to do. The crime. And whoever falls into that crime, you go after. Now, and back then even, they went after the person. D. Augustine, you're right. McCain is a globalist shield. Here you go. So tell me what you think, Ryan. Bring up anything you think of it historically.
Well, offhand, I can't really think of any examples of that. But when you do go after the person instead of the crime, that gives them a little bit more leeway, I think, sometimes if there's people that they want to target.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, if you want to get anybody, you can pretty much you can find something. There's always something.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I think that might be the mentality that they come at a little bit.
That's exactly the mentality, brother.
Yeah, and honestly, to fight all these specific crimes, that might be a lot of work sometimes.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like they might be just a little bit too big of a chore sometimes to really care about stopping this particular type of crime when they could single some people out here and there, selectively single some people out.
Well, even in Afghanistan, I saw it, man. We weren't guarding grapes over there. And look at our opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing that I think of is going after the crime is the only way to go if you're actually going to say justice is blind. Okay?
Yeah, right.
But justice is no longer blind. As a matter of fact, justice is dead and starting to bloat because Lady Justice went out the door a couple times, and I'll go back to the Cold War on this. Not that I'm a fan of them at all, but how many times did we find spies within our midst for different countries? It wasn't just for the Russians. It was for Israel.
Oh, yeah.
And not only, and here's how federal LEO works. I'm going to be very frank. First, and it's Saul Alinsky tactics, rules for radical. You isolate, you vilify, and then you destroy the person. And that's honestly the way federal LEO works. It matters not. Once they get you in their crosshairs, even if it's a crime they think they got you on, they will do it. And I've seen it done, and I've been vociferous about this is bull crap. Why are you going after this person this way? This is not right. But see, for some reason, law enforcement, right and wrong sometimes doesn't matter. And that's why I say that Lady Justice, from my time starting during the Cold War, remember I served under Reagan. That's where I started this game, in the Army. And then I went into the Marine Corps, and Bush got elected. And he only got my vote in 92 because he brought my sorry ass back from, the first Gulf War. And, that was the only reason I voted for him. I wouldn't have voted for Clinton. I probably would have just sat at home, but I've never...
Ross Perot.
I was a Ross Perot guy. And I'm not joking. I was a Ross Perot guy until he went on this goofy thing about the Bushes messing with his daughter's wedding, and come to think about it now, in hindsight, it's probably absolutely true.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I think in fifth grade, I think, during that election. So, I vaguely remember all the like big ear jokes, I guess, about Ross Perot and his money and so forth, but I don't remember a lot of the specific claims. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Well, people forget Ross Perot had a successful rescue under Carter of his people that were being held in Iran. He actually funded, I think that's where Bear Grylls and or not Bear Grylls, Grylls, yeah, and
yeah.
What's the operator's name now? He retired. General Boykin, who was in Delta, one of the founders of Delta, and some other people all got involved. It's the same as Thatcher and the boys in London doing their thing and getting in trouble for, what was it, they wanted to invade Papua New Guinea.
Oh, okay.
So that's back during that same era. Margaret Thatcher's son, Mark Thatcher, was involved in that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Why they want to invade there?
I can't even remember. They probably had diamonds or some crap. Who knows?
Oh.
It's in Africa, so who cares? Who knows? Yeah, because honestly, I mean, right now the Chinese are strong in there. But
in Africa?
Yeah, that was a heavy-duty Western colonialist point, launching off point back in the day. But yeah.
But yeah, they're kind of going in, and even India is to a lot lesser extent, but still enough to mention.
Oh yeah.
India, yeah, they're buying a lot of farmland in East Africa.
Yep.
Actually, it's kind of funny. We think of like Ethiopia, Somalia as famine places, but yeah, the Indians are making it work there. So
that's correct. The people who are industrious will always make something work, and when they talk about IQ, that's a real thing to think about. I don't want to get into it, but anyways, back to the Cold War. So during that time, we go on. I like doing that sometimes, but I'm sure it bores other people. The thing about the Cold War is, at least during that time, people prepared.
Yes.
They absolutely, like the house I live in was built in 1881. It's one of the oldest houses in the city, and basically has a bomb shelter made into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the basement was hand dug and poured at different times. You can see different levels and lengths as to how big our basement is. Different pours of it. And it's kind of funny to me that I see a bunch of people panicking. There was one person who said, I don't really have a full basement. Well, they forget it's time distance shielding. There's a great book written, and I'm going to suggest it on this podcast, or on this vlog, whatever we call this, to look at. And it's by Dr. Bruce D. Clayton, and it's called Life After Doomsday. And it's a great primer, but it also has valid information. See, his travels are just like mine, in all honesty. When I read his book, I was like, wow. When I read it when I was young, I didn't quite grasp it. But as I've gotten older, I realized that's kind of how I went. When I was over in Europe, I was guarding fissionable material. That's all I'm going to get into on that. And things that could, be used during a time of crisis. And I was pretty much a Marxist, but then I started seeing Eastern Germany, and I saw the realities of communism. And so I was listening to the Greens saying, at that time it would be global cooling, because if nukes flew, it would freeze the planet. They even made a couple movies like that. One was World War III with Rock Hudson and David Soul.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. The other one was The Day After.
Yes, that's a really good one.
That's a really good one, and they try to put that kind of thing to it, where it's, you know, freezing afterwards. And it goes from being a sunny, bright, beautiful day to after fissionable material flies, it's global freezing.
Yeah.
But the reality is far different, because if you look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and me being stationed for my final year in the Marine Corps, I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and I went as a military policeman to assist with, they have a large, it's Marine Corps Air Base Iwakuni, and they have a large air show there every year. And Iwakuni is right very close to Peace Park. And, you know, I've served in Korea, been on Operation Valiant Blitz, Team Spirit, and Bear Hunt. So I've seen Korea too. And so as I was getting on, the Greens, I believe that theory and that belief. And then all of a sudden I started looking, because all of it was naysaying, and I'm like, the military was telling me, no, it's completely survivable. NBC, nuclear, chemical, biological warfare, is completely survivable as long as you're prepared. That's the military, the way they teach it. And I thought, well, they got to be lying to me. It's the government. It's the government. And I started researching it. And there's a whole lot of books out there. And Bruce D. Clayton's book, Life After Doomsday, it does have some reprints from some of the Army TMs and the Army FMs on like winds and different things like that. You know what I'm talking about, having a cursor area, right. NBC training in the military, just like I do. But, you know, I went on to go on and learn more about emergency management, but in school. But what I'm saying is, that was reality. The military was actually telling us real deal stuff, and the media gives us propaganda. And, you know, that's funny, Willie Burger. He said wars are planned on golf courses and fought, by the most part, by those who can't afford to be a member. You know what?
Yeah.
That's kind of funny, but I'm a contractor, so I can't afford to be a member. I can afford to be a member. But I choose not to be.
Yeah, that's a good quote, though.
But yeah, that was really good. I got to give him props on that. That was awesome, brother. But yeah, no, like I said, the military actually, and the federal government, back in the old days, I have a big sign on my wall, or on my, I live in the physical manifestation of the war room. It's an old podcast that I used to go on by Vandal Void. And if you ever want to look at it, you can. It is what it is. But they used to come around and they'd say, this is a physical manifestation of the war room. And I have this big, I don't know what you'd call it, where you addressing, it's not a closet, it's a whatever, it's a wooden thing that holds crap. And on one of the doors, I have my fallout shelter sign from Civil Defense. I got that from somewhere I'm not going to talk about. And but the thing is, Civil Defense was when people were serious about stuff, and they actually researched stuff. And that's how schools used to be fallout shelters. There's even manuals by FEMA even on how to build a school that's compliant with survivability. And
I've seen some of these brochures, or I guess little booklets that the government would put out in the 50s, late 40s, and so forth. That most of them would be about like 60 pages and pretty dense.
Yeah.
And and they would encourage people to keep food and radios and batteries. What to do in case. What to do in case of this and that. And it's probably, I don't know, different times, like we talked about with the Russian situation, where people back then knew the stakes. And I think people just took it a little bit more seriously back then.
Well, you had to, like we started the program with, us Cold War kids were hard to kill. We'd be under our desk in an air raid drill. The reality is, like with the woman who was asking, I said, look, it's time, distance, and shielding. The farther you are, the amount of time you're exposed, and the amount of shielding you have. Like in my basement, I added block windows, right? But I also was fortunate as an iron worker going through school. I was a union iron worker. We were building bridges, and they had these lead plates, pretty much. They're probably 1/8 of an inch thick. And they were like little bumps on the bridges for, highways to mash down. And when we put the new bridges in, they were throwing them out, so I took them. So I lined my basement with lead. And, that lead is the densest material besides water. Yeah. And you can still find publications from the 90s from FEMA where they were actually given honest appraisals. You can take FEMA courses if you really want to get into stuff and get deep into this. You can take FEMA courses through their I'm trying to think of what it's called now. I've taken many of those courses because it was easy college credit. It was you take the course through their little like the Marine Corps had, the Marine Corps Institute.
Yeah, and, like the MCIs.
Yeah, like an MCI. Yeah, Marine Corps Institute, but this is a FEMA correspondence course.
Oh, okay, and
then you get the college credit from the University of, at the time, Maryland. So they may not be doing that now, but it was like $65. So for a college credit. So if you had one that was worth 2 or 3 college credits, it's $65 per college credit. Easy college credits, and they still offer that program from all I know. But getting back to what I was talking about, I don't know why I go on these diatribes, bro. But the funniest part is there are so many books out there. I suggest people read books. I'm gonna give some plugs, and I'm not getting paid for them, trust me. But they are men that I've met and I like, and they have a good philosophy. And my philosophy is on survival training, and I've done that for a long time too, even when I was doing other things. I still do it. Don't do survival training out in the middle of nowhere where you have no backup, because all the time professional survivalists are found dead because they screwed something up. Survival training is, the point of it is to learn the skills, and then if you're forced into a survival situation, you have those skills. So what sense does it make in your survival training to go out somewhere where you're training because you don't know the skills and die, when you have professionals that know the skills, they go out there and die? See what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
And the consumerist society we live in, not many people, the basics are this. Look, I'll give you an example just on one thing. Right now I'm shaking it. A little bottle, right, of potassium iodate, 85 milligrams, 90 tablets, okay?
Yeah.
It's put out by the Medical Corps. You can find them online. It floods the thyroid gland with potassium iodine. And that's so the thyroid's the most vulnerable thing to radiation, no matter the amount. And with the potassium iodine, it keeps it from getting into your thyroid. And that's something everybody should have for family members. Every family member should have a bottle of it. It's usually about 14 days that you're going to be at risk after an event, until you can come up for limited periods of times. And that's just the fact. Because from the moment you have the incident, everything's half-lifing.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues to half-life. And people think, well, half-life, it's X amount of rads. Well, it's half-lifed after the first second, after the first minute, after the first hour. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it usually runs, and Hiroshima and Nagasaki proved that out. And a lot of that stuff people just don't get. But there are timetables. You guys have to look. I mean, I can't do the research. I could do a whole podcast on it, and you would be bored to tears, and nobody would give a crap. I'm being very honest. Am I lying? Honestly,
No, not at all. Yeah. Some of it is kind of tough to swallow, or tough to digest, I guess. Maybe be a better way to put it. But yeah, I don't know. There's a book. I'm actually trying to find it right now. It was written in probably about 1983 when, well, things kind of started heating up again between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Right. And it was...
What was it called? I might have it.
I've got it. It's like... the name's like a play on something. It's Everything You Wanted to Know About Nuclear War But Was Afraid to Ask, or something along those lines.
I have one called... I think I know the book you're talking about. I think the actual title before it was changed was Would Insects Inherit the Earth? And you can actually get that from FEMA for free.
Oh, is that...
Yeah, I think that they just changed the title. And I could be wrong because there's another book that's very similar. I've read that book, but I'm trying to remember how it was retitled because...
no, Nuclear War and What's in It for You. Is that it?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
That's
yeah.
It. Yep. And it wasn't retitled. That wasn't Insects Inherit the Earth. It was called, oh my goodness, I don't want to go over to my library. I may have to, guys. How was that titled? It was it talks about like how the postal system will go on, all the planning. Of everything that the government's already done.
Okay.
If that's the book you're talking about.
No, the one I just found it here. I've got a copy of it at probably 20 feet away from me. But it's Nuclear War, What's in It for You? And Ground Zero, I guess, is the subtitle. But it's written by some people that were... I think they were with nuclear proliferation groups. Okay. And they give like it's a fun book to read. Like they've got like kind of a nice wry, dark sense of humor to a lot of it.
Oh, cool.
And everything it's very digestible. And they explain pretty much everything behind nuclear war, nuclear bombs, and easy to digest, I guess, terms. And then I think, if I remember right, the last chapter is kind of like a fictional account of what a nuclear war would look like.
I remember that book. Yeah, I do not have that book. And a matter of fact, that's not the book I'm thinking about that was redone. Okay. So yeah, I do remember that book. Yeah, that was back. Yeah, I was still a kid when I read that. Shoot.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's like you just took me back to an era where the only thing I ever stole in my life, this is a true story. I've stolen one thing in my life, and it's very real. I went to, my school was Westland High School. They'll probably send me a charge now that I'm admitting to it on the air. But it was The Life and Times of William Walker. It was called Sad Swashbuckler. And that was like pivotal at my 14-year-old age. That's what I wanted to do with my life.
All right.
And I did it. So, whatever. I just haven't become president of Nicaragua yet.
Not yet. There's still time.
There's still time. I'm not 50 yet. I can go back to Iraq and maybe just carve out a fiefdom. Who knows? But
yeah, there's a vacuum there that needs filled.
Yes, there is. But I'm benevolent. Anyways, now, let's get back to
how it starts.
Let's get back to the Cold War, bro. Like I said, man, I'm glad that you're on, Ryan. We are having such a good time, folks. I think we're gonna have to take a break. I've got a song that I'll play while we're doing that, and it's from a friend of mine, Axon, and it's called Meme Magic in Theory and Practice. So enjoy.
All right.
Hopefully you guys all enjoyed that brief interlude. Like I said, my buddy's the one who came up with that one, and I thought it was epic. It took me back to the 80s, and I thought it was very apropos for this chat. What do you think about it, my friend?
Nice little synth wave. I'm into it.
There we go, synth wave all the way. Now I'm gonna switch pictures a little bit. I had my picture up earlier of me in Berlin back in the day. It was back in what, 2013, 14, somewhere in there, 15. I don't know. It's so hard to keep track of this crap. But now I have my picture up in Afghanistan when I was a young man.
All right.
I was in Panjshir. So basically what I'm saying is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lewellin, nuclear, chemical, biological warfare are all very preventable. They're the easiest to train for. Let me rephrase that. The easiest to survive.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, they kind of are. And from the other perspective, they're difficult to make work for the other side.
Yep.
There's environmental factors sometimes. Yep. Wind that you have to contend with. Even the sun is breaking them down.
Yeah.
So they have to get it just right. But if you're prepared for it, you will survive.
Completely. I mean, if it's a bioagent, trust me, and I don't know if they made you guys take it. We had to take the anthrax.
Oh
sequence.
Yeah.
And then
it was a pretty. Yeah, it was a pretty rough sequence of shots.
Yeah, and then we had to take. At the time, it was experimental. I don't know if they're still making troops take it because of the side effects. It hasn't really. I mean, there was a side effect one time, but it also saved me and my sergeant it was called paradistostamine bromide, which was a tablet nerve agent pre-treatment that we took, and it's written about. I mean, I can talk about it just because the English talk about it, but our stuff that we wrote, and it was me and my sergeant, and there was one naval EOD tech and then British EOD techs with him that were on scene. We wrote the report, as military policemen on the jetty in Ras Al Jabal. It's called the Jabal incident, where we were exposed to nerve agent. And it was a Al Hussein missile that broke up. It did not mean to land there. It broke up. We watched it break up in the air, and it went in between. It was like a football being kicked between a masthead fore and aft on a ship called the Cape Florida in the port of Ras Al Jabal. And we went out to that jetty where it impacted. It sounded like a big beer can crushing. Really did as we were driving to it. We drove out. It was still steaming. And at that time, we had to send all of our NBC clothing, our Mop 4 clothing in.
Yeah.
They had to do a funny little thing that now all NBC stuff has. I'm not going to get into the specifics of why that happened, but there was a reason for it. And so we had no mop gear. And we didn't even put on our mask, and the Brits and everybody come out, even the Navy guy came out. And, he's taking paradistostamine bromide too. And we're writing our report fine as heck. And the Navy and the Brits are like, there's nerve agent here. And we're like, yeah, whatever. And continue to write it out. And all of a sudden, the Navy EOD tech's like, they're fine. I'm going to be fine. He pulls off his mask. And he was fine because he was taking paradistostamine bromide too. We talked about it later. They did have legitimate nerve agent hit off of this missile. And the British have, if you look it up, it's called the Jabal incident. It's put out by the Brits. So you can, even for nerve agent, and I don't know if they're still making you. Did they make you guys take that?
I don't think so.
Okay. It had a bad side effect. I'm not going to get into the side effect, but it did have a bad side effect.
Okay. Yeah, I think the only thing we had to take that was like that was the anthrax. And I forgot how many shots exactly it was, but I remember there was one shot that had a really bad side effect.
Hallucinogenic.
Basically everybody just felt like they had the flu. Yeah. For like a night or so. Then it passed and everything was just fine. And then your arm would swell up. It would almost look like you'd have like half of an egg basically there after one of them. It was that like the the swelling after that shot was that big. But I don't know. I remember the anthrax shot was kind of the controversial thing at the time.
Yeah.
And I guess we didn't quite have the same internet culture, where I guess conspiracy theories, quote unquote, could circulate a little bit more. But the idea that the anthrax shot was something that would cause, negative side effects or, kill you or whatnot, that was definitely something out there. I remember them giving us a little speech to kind of convince us that the anthrax shot was something good. But to be honest, I haven't really looked into it recently, and I'm not sure if there were any long-term implications from giving everybody the anthrax shot.
There have been from the Gulf War that I don't really want to get in. It's a VA thing. One of them is women who are married to their husbands can actually get paid by the VA. Of course, it goes through the husband, but it's called burning semen syndrome, honestly. And it's because...
Sounds like a band.
Yeah, exactly. But it is something that's legit that the VA pays out. I have not, besides the direct things like I talk about, I've had no real issues, no Gulf War illness. As of this time, I know others that have. And I was in there from August 7th and that's basically the beginning of the crap. And went into both Kuwait and other places I'm not getting into, and I left on April Fool's Day. I honestly thought they had to send a guy. I did highway patrol at the end of the war in customs, and they actually had to send a guy out to get me because I was doing highway patrol on Tariq 121, and we called it Death Highway because it would always be some 5-ton or a deuce and a half running over some Saudi. But Miracle Mile Highway, that's what we called it.
Oh, okay.
So anyways, he comes up, he's got his lights going on. I'm like, what the crap? And he's like, Chef, you're going home. I'm like, yeah, right, April Fool's, man. That's not funny. And he's like, no, you're on a flight. You got to get back now. And we switched vehicles, and I flew out that day. So anyway, Sam Hyde had 2 questions. Considering doctrinal stockpile changes, would you still consider FEMA's likely target maps from the 80s and 90s accurate?
I would say more or less. Yeah. On the national scope, there are going to be some things that shift. Just off the top of my head, there's going to be more of an importance shifted to like the Sun Belt, I guess, as far as what would be important in our country. But I remember when I was a kid seeing one of these maps, and I live in Des Moines, Iowa, right. And they showed us a couple of potential scenarios where if we would get nuked, like where they would land and what would happen and so forth. And I think they would still apply for my city. I would assume for the most part, most of them would still be accurate.
I would.
What do you think about that?
I would too.
Yeah.
Sun Belt is iffy because like the Russians know, like Florida, they know that's where the ladies that's talking and it sounds like they have bran muffins in their throat live, and they're all old, right? So I think the maps may have shifted just because of, if you're doing something like that, you're trying to erase the fighting generation. And if you know those people are going to die off, for the most part in that area, why would you attack it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my head I was thinking more like along the lines of, like Phoenix, Austin,
right.
Some of these places kind of, the Dallas Metroplex kind of becoming.
It's major.
Yeah, like, it was important, in the 80s and 90s and so forth, but it's kind of shot up, I guess, in stature, I guess, in the United States. So there's been a little bit of shift, I guess. Maybe away from, the Midwest, Rust Belt, New England, so forth, South and West, I guess, in our country. Salt Lake City, too. It's kind of places like that.
Salt Lake now would be a prime target because they know that's where NSA stores all of our knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So
Sam Hyde, where are you at?
Well, he's probably not going to say, but...
Oh, okay.
And the best course of action for someone without a fallout shelter, I'll tell you, if you live in a city, get some distance. If you don't, that's okay too. Just without a fallout shelter, you have to understand it's all time distance shielding. So if you live in a multi-story place, try to be at the bottom. And then there's ways, like I said, there's a FEMA handbook on how to do an improvised shelter. And you can find, a matter of fact, it's also talked about in Kearney's book. It's also talked about in, why am I mind dumping? I just said his name earlier. Bruce D. Clayton's book, Dr. Bruce D. Clayton's book, Life After Doomsday, on how to build an improvised shelter. Like I said, it's water's dense. It's all about strategically locating your position. And it's even if you're in a basement, you're using the earth and maybe other materials, concrete, whatever. as you're shielding, but you still have to think about it like you're playing pool. So if you're playing pool, think about the angles. Do you want to be in the center of it, because all that radiation's going towards the center, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then do you want to build maybe a table to work on somewhere, and then you can get maybe pieces of lead, like I talked about, these flat lead pieces. That's very dense, and so that gives you more density. If this is not making sense to you, but if it's built up high, you're also getting that in reverse almost. That the outside's gonna be more affected, and the middle's gonna get less because you have all these other floors above you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because your ceiling's not right there, and the angles aren't working right.
So Sam says he's roughly in the Great Lakes region. I would say that you should just kind of do a threat assessment of where you're at. For instance, like I said, I'm here in Des Moines, and what they told me was that the primary reason that the Soviets were going to target here is because we're at the intersection of I-80 and I-35.
Right.
I-80 more or less goes east to west, and I-35 is pretty much right down the center of the country, north to south. And this would have been an important, for our transportation system in the United States to take that out. It's kind of funny that something that during peacetime could be done with like a few concrete barriers or pylons or something closing it off, they'd do with a nuclear missile.
Yeah.
But just kind of funny. But think about how where you live would be strategically important. Is there any government facilities, military facilities, important manufacturing, transportation nodes of some sort? I live about an hour and a half away from Omaha, Nebraska, which is one of the biggest nuclear targets in the United States. Yep, because there's Offutt Air Force Base, which is the Strategic Air Command. It also has some important bridges.
Yes, it does.
That go over the Missouri River, and I-80, of course, too. And it's important for agribusiness.
Yep.
And Union Pacific Railroad right there too. And that's just to give you some kind of examples of how to think about where you live may or may not be a target.
And where to locate.
Yeah.
He's not joking. Look, people forget the entire interstate system was developed by DOD.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I-70 was the first freeway system developed, if I remember right, off of old State Route 40 and our state route in Ohio. And all the bridges are designed that they can shield an aircraft that lands there. Okay, a military aircraft, a jet. Okay, you can even land bombers on on certain parts of the highway. They're all designed for this. And that's a part of our civil defense. But see, FEMA doesn't want to talk about this crap. Back in old civil defense stuff, they even talk about bring your firearms to the place because they'll have you standing guard if you're at a civil defense fallout shelter. They'll put you to work as a man, an able-bodied man.
Let me bounce this idea off you. I've heard this before, that a lot of the fallout shelters that you would find in, say, schools, churches, and so forth, were really just there for casualty collection.
Yes and no. If you look at the fallout shelter, when you look at them, you'll see the difference. You have to think. The actual fallout shelter that you go to, let's say, at my old elementary school, we had a fallout shelter. Me and a brother of mine, great dude. We went to our old elementary school. I got pictures on my Facebook. We went back in, and I took pictures in that fallout shelter. And we used to have to go for drills in there. That was to protect the kids. But everything outside of it, while it's still underground, that would have been, you have to think about triage. That would have been
Right.
casualty collection. And then a lot of the schools, people forget, they still had the old burners. And if you look at the schools, those burners had a lot of them back in the day. I don't know about where you're from, but they had big doors on them. So figure out why they had those big doors. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah.
You know, people can come and think about what they want, and I'm not trying to tell anybody what to think, and I'm not going to give my opinion. But I would say you're correct, half right, half wrong. Let me rephrase that: half correct, half wrong.
Yeah, I think part of that too is, there's just so many things that are unknown factors
There is.
about this, So, like, I mean, no one's, completely 100% sure, what would happen, thank God at something like this.
Oh yeah, I mean, think about it. I could be asleep tonight, and they could have a full release. And where I live in Ohio, I've got an Air Force base nearby. I have a major city, a young city, a vibrant city. Then Cleveland is north of me, and Cincinnati's not too far to the south. So, I'm in that sweet spot where no matter which way the wind blows, I'm getting something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even here's something during the Cold War, and this was little published, but we knew it. We had like 100% success rate with our stuff. The Russians at that time had anywhere from 75 to 50%, depending, success rate. Well, after 8
And you're talking accuracy, right?
No, I'm talking about it actually going to fission.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
The chain starting is what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Well, now we were close to 100%, right? Remember, we had 8 years of a guy that neglected, and Trump was not wrong when he said he's got to rebuild stuff and triggers and all that kind of stuff. That has a shelf life. And guess what? He neglected that. So we may, and Putin and Medvedev and Putin before him, remember how this worked. Remember the hot mic moment with Obama. Let Vladimir know that, after the election I'll have more latitude. Remember that whole crap he did? Well,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He did that. He's a traitor, in my opinion. You don't have to agree, and I don't want you to. But what I'm saying is, we know this happened. And so I think it's reversed now. I think they have been. I mean, we now know they have the 5, what is it? Those missiles they now launched that are running so fast, it's like 5 times the speed of sound. And they're anti-ship missiles. They'll break the kill. And everybody who's a military historian knows, you break the kill of a ship, it doesn't matter how big, it's going to sink. And you're going to kill a lot of people. And once that happens, don't think a ship going down a big one will not be the cause of a fissionable war.
Yeah. Are you familiar with John Michael Greer, the author?
No, never heard of him.
Oh, he's got a blog, and he writes books, but he wrote a really good book that, and this is not normally the kind of thing that he does, called Dawn's Early Light.
Okay.
And it's a fiction, I guess, alternative history or whatnot, of a war that would happen in about 10 years or so from now. And basically that's what happens is the United States Navy shows up, and it's the Chinese in this and not the Russians.
Right.
and they launch these missiles that have developed so far past our naval technology and just basically destroy our fleet.
Yeah.
And we end up getting our nose bloodied really bad in it. But yeah, really good book.
I'll tell you,
But
I'll tell you another book. You're a Cold War buff, brother.
mhm.
Awesome book. It's a lieutenant colonel. I think he's on Fox all the time or something. Can't remember his name. It'll come to me. But when I tell you the name, you'll probably know who I'm talking about. Red Army, and it's written from the perspective of the Red Army on an invasion of Western Europe. And
Oh, really?
yeah, Lieutenant Colonel. Oh, why am I mind dumping him? He's always on, man, and it's a phenomenal book. You'll know the cover of it. It'll have a Soviet era style guy, and how quickly Europe gets taken. And see, here's something people who didn't live this don't realize. In the Cold War, Berlin, we all knew we were EPWs, enemy prisoners of war. When
Yeah.
the war kicked off, we knew that would happen. A matter of fact, Berlin Brigade, the military policemen, we had chrome bumpers on our Jeeps until we got to Hummers. And we had Mac dogs on our platoon, Mac bulldogs on our hoods that were chrome. And then there was white and, green colors. Because white, we were military police, military police in white,
Right.
and then green, everywhere else. And the bumpers for some of the vehicles, they were usually officer vehicles, were chrome. I remember seeing this. I didn't drive in any of them, trust me. But I did drive in the Jeeps that had green, OD green or camouflage, and then white
Yeah.
military police on it. But then when I went out to field units, which I was mostly filled. That was my white hat day. When I went out to my field units, we were camoed up. All camouflage military police was written in black. A matter of fact, I have the Jeeps always had a tire on the back, and I have my old. It was tan in color. I got it in my garage, tan in color with our little emblem on it. And it said military police in black. The emblem was black, and it was on a tan little round thing to cover the tire still, made of wood. So these just happen to be. And then the first thing in the field that you learn is you lift your hood up and put it back on the Jeep to keep your window from shining. You didn't want the sun to glint off it and give away your position when you camoed up that Jeep.
Yeah.
So, that's some fun stuff. But if you're out in the open, this is what I do. The military always teaches you helmet to the blast, on the ground, covering everything that's exposed. And then the blast goes by you, and you're supposed to get up and continue mission. We all know, that's just a way to say it'll buy you a few minutes. It'll buy you some time, if it works. If you don't get blown away by the blast, if it doesn't.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen at that point? Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the life of a military man. It's different than a civilian. Civilians, you guys have time.
Yeah.
And use that time. There's a product out there. They look like bricks, but they hold water. So it's I can't think of the name of it, but you stack them up, and you can actually make a safe room inside even a trailer or something, and you'll have a room that has water in it, because water's going to be the major thing. People always talk about food, they don't think about water. Oh, I'll get it out the creek. Yeah, you might, but what if you don't? What if you can't leave your house? Or if you do leave your house, you're dosing yourself every time you do it. Remember, it's 14 days. Water's key, a gallon a day, and these things, you fill them up with water. Water's dense. It's something you can buy. It's expensive. I can't remember what the bricks cost, but they're pretty expensive. But you get like 10 of them at a time. But 10, you think about it, you're building, just like you're building a room, You're building a house out of this. So a house that you're going to have to live in. And then they don't think about sanitation. buy some trash bags, get a bucket, and realize you're going to be living very close to where you dispose of those trash bags until you can get out in 14 days.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of sawdust and
some lime.
Yeah.
A bag or two of lime. I mean, these are real things. And you also have to think about your loved ones may die in your care. A first aid kit. When I say first aid, you have to think about what you're going to see. And I mean, these are hard thoughts that hard men actually back in the day with civil defense thought of. And in civil defense, FEMA made it so like women could do this. Women, there's a reason why men and women are different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like the emotion. Yeah, well, that's the Kearney thing. Air filtration. Sam Hyde just asked about air filtration. Air filtration, you can make a cheap thing called a Kearney pump. I believe that's what it's called. And it's hand done. There's no electric. You can make them electric, but also have that hand thing. And that's what, you can do for that. So you'll have to research it and see what I'm talking about. But that's a great question. Air filtration's fine. You just need to research it and see what I'm talking about. The Kearney hand pump. But going back to what I'm saying, it was a part of this dystopian thing where they wanted us to not really think that a woman needed a man and a man needs a woman because it completes the family unit. And the thing about it, to me, is that so many women bought into it, and there's so many single mothers. I can't imagine if this does happen, and I hope it doesn't. I will pray every night that it doesn't. But all I'm trying to do is guide you to what hard men had to think about to make you less concerned on what is coming or could come. Mm-hmm. Let me rephrase that. What could come.
Right.
I'm not saying I don't peddle on fear porn. I'm trying not to. But we are at a place now that I don't think we've seen since, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, Mr. Lewellin, since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah,
maybe that, or maybe the mid '80s.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But yeah, this is I don't know, the what are they, the atomic scientist bulletin of atomic scientists, they moved the doomsday clock just it was right after Trump got elected, right, to 2.5 minutes from midnight,
right.
And like, you kind of scoffed at it a little bit, kind of figured it was more political than anything, and maybe it was, but the doomsday clock hadn't been like that since since the Cuban Missile Crisis.
No, it hasn't. And
like, maybe they're over exaggerating a little bit, but they were kind of onto something that we are in a dangerous era.
Yeah.
And I think there's, like I said at the beginning of this, there's potential for real dialogue and understanding with the Russians.
Right.
I think, but there's also potential for things to go completely south too. Time will tell. Time will tell. Hopefully, cooler heads prevail. So.
Well, I hope so. And like I said, Trump, the last time this happened, he bombed an empty base.
Yeah.
That made the neo-Cohens happy. Hopefully he does the same thing. Hopefully he bombs something that's totally irrelevant. Because I think, honestly, I'm hoping, let me rephrase that, I don't think, I'm hoping he understands what the white helmets are and how they manipulated his last thing. And while we're talking, I'm not looking up at the news. He could have already have sent ships to attack. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
our public knows. They could, my 93 people sitting on my big orange couch next to me and you, and enjoying this conversation, maybe not, are learning something, and if they hear about something, I would hope they would tell me, and you know, but who knows?
Yeah, like duck and cover, guys.
Duck and cover. Oh man, I'll tell you that reminds me of hold on, let me think of something. There was something that used to happen. Oh, it does still happen. Wait, it didn't used to just happen. It does still happen. I was trying to be facetious there, folks. The emergency broadcast system, which we all know about, that's for real, and it happens every Wednesday. All of you hear it. The sirens, if you have them, your radio going beep, beep, beep. And back when I went to school, maybe not for you, Ryan, but when I went to school, when that happened, every Wednesday, guess what we did?
Duck and cover.
Got under our desk, put our hands behind our head like a tornado drill. So, that's for real.
See, we got a question. What do you guys think of the I was actually going to bring this up, but the contradictory Trump tweets. First one warned Russian to get ready. Second one was saying how we don't need an arms race with Russia. This was actually kind of hopeful, yes. I thought. Because you know how Trump sometimes he'll take things to the extreme and then reel it back in a little bit.
Yep.
To me, I thought that was signaling that Trump was looking to make a deal.
That's what I thought.
Kind of like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like driving like that hard line and then saying, well, you know, things don't have to be this way. So I'm glad he did come back with that one.
Well, people forget.
And
people forget how Trump is. There was that time, people always forget this, and I remember this. This is in the Cold War, the 80s, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Some dude was getting beat up with a baseball bat. Trump has his limo driver stop. And he's like, boom. What are you doing, man? You know, gets out, and he was ready to go fisticuffs.
Yeah.
And so the other thing that gives me hope with what you said, D. Augustine and now Sam Hyde, is that, yeah, we have assets in place right now, but the other assets aren't due until the 27th. So that gives 15 days of travel time. That gives 15 days. So
for what it's worth, I saw, and this is somebody translating this, was a tweet in Russian from the Russian Ministry of Defense, I believe it is. And they issued a statement that said that there are channels of communication between the United States and Russia right now, and they're at that level working on de-escalating things. So hopefully that is true. Hopefully some of this is just theatrics.
Yeah.
Really. And we also have to take into consideration Trump's domestic political situation, yes, where the narrative that, you know, he's a puppet of Putin or whatever plays with some people. To me, you know, I don't buy that the Russians had any effect on our election, or that, you know, Trump had any significant dealings with the Russians. But some people really believe this.
I know, and 50% of the country does.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Right. You know, it just white people in the Rust Belt voted for Trump over Clinton. That's what happened, you know, and like people are going to have to eventually come to grips with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, you know, there are people that probably don't believe it or don't, you know, put a whole lot of stock into it, but would play that card.
Yeah.
just for other political reasons. So Trump, and this is a criticism of him, that I feel that he will maybe make a production out of being tough with Russia in order to counter some of these things.
I would say
instead of
yep, go on.
Instead of firmly saying, if this is how he feels, no, you guys are full of shit. We can work with Russia.
Well,
instead of saying that, he's gonna, we'll bomb them or whatever. So
well, it was a week ago he said that. He honestly did. And then Bolton come to the fore. And once Bolton came in, see, here's the timing that always throws me off. Because if you listen to a lot of my, not you, Ryan, but I'm talking about other people that have listened to my podcast, you've heard me say that there was open dialogue about to happen, arrests are about to happen, and what I'm seeing right now is the timing is so suspicious, because I think it's between the deep state knows the jig is up, and there are arrests coming.
I hope so.
Oh, there is. So now it's become Mueller raiding Trump's lawyer about a porn actress, a high-priced hooker, basically.
Yeah.
And her being told, hey, here's your cash, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
And what billionaire wouldn't have a lawyer do that and give him, X amount of dollars for whatever comes up? I don't need to know about it. Just handle stuff when it happens. If I'm getting sued or whatever, blackmailed, who knows? But Trump, nobody didn't know he was a philanderer. Just like nobody didn't know that Benjamin Franklin wasn't screwing everything. And
right,
nobody
yeah.
didn't know that, this is the funny, one thing's funny. Nobody didn't know that Sally Hemings and all other kinds of women were wrapping around old Jefferson, and nobody in the 80s the 80s and 90s didn't know that Bill Clinton was a serial rapist. And
right.
How many times did Hillary come out with her little bimbo eruptions team to shut them down? So, like I said, there's some criminality going on the other side, and I think it could be a distraction. And I would agree that you think it's dangerous. This is to D'Agostine, that it's dangerous to come off aggressive towards Putin. Yeah, he's former KGB, GRU. But what I will tell you is Putin is a pragmatist.
Yes.
This is the thing nobody understands about the KGB, GRU. They were the calm heads during the war. And the Cold War is what I'm talking about. They were the calm heads. They would tell the Politburo what to do. And Putin being one of them, like I said earlier, there's a famous picture of a blonde Putin standing right next to Reagan. And he was KGB GRU then.
Yeah.
But looked like a college student. And so, if you guys think this stuff is not old school, it's old school. It's as old school as I am. Ryan, you're new school. You're a great dude, man. But, when you live history, it's one, and I'm not banging on anybody. I'm saying when you live a history and you've seen things happen, it does jade you in a way, but it also opens your mind. And that's all I hope that we're doing tonight. We're trying to be pragmatist, I think. Be ready for anything. Look, it's like praise the Lord, pass the ammunition. And it's also the same thing as like be ready, but pray that you don't have to use your preps. If does that make
Right.
sense, Ryan, or did I sound like a dork? I probably did. 'Cause
No,
I
no,
am.
yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Plan for the worst, hope for the best.
There you go. And
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to tell you guys. I mean, we're having fun here, but we're also trying to pass knowledge. And I would not have Mr. Lewellin on unless I thought he was probably one of the premier millennial thinkers of this era on the Cold War, because look, history does not repeat, it does rhyme. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, there's a lot of patterns out there.
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of patterns, yeah.
if you guys discount that pirate radio broadcast, was that the one that
Yeah.
you were on?
Yep, that was just 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
I believe.
That's how I met up with you. A great guy by the name of Jaffe Ryder. I've known him for a long time, and I met Mr. Lewellin, and I thought, wow, this guy knows his stuff.
Thank you.
So, wow, I'm seeing that our video's not available right now. Don't know what's happening here.
It's not.
It's still showing that it just says Stream House in the orange, but it says this video is unavailable.
Huh.
Got a notification, so let's see what happened. Refresh. Oh, okay, I'll refresh. Here we go. Boom. Refreshing. We'll see what happens. All right. Welcome back. Oh, we're back up again.
All right, everything good?
It looks like we're good. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
We'll see you in the comments. Oh, the Augustine said, happened to me too.
Huh.
So,
Yeah, I guess I would have refreshed. I think about at the break time I did, so maybe mine's a little bit different, I guess, than yours. So,
all right, awesome. So, hopefully I didn't stop anything we said. Hopefully everybody still heard everything. He said stayed up the whole time. So
that audio. Okay, cool. All right.
So like I said, man, the most beautiful thing that I see is that we're actually having discussions on this in a rational way. And I mean this. I'm going to throw a picture up. If you want to look at it, you can. If not, it's just stupid. But during the Gulf War, I bodyguarded Steve Martin. So that's my new picture. Yeah, he came over there to on a USO thing.
Oh wow.
You know.
Yeah. See, the whole time I was in Iraq, we were on FOB mom. Oh, there you are. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. He and the funny story to go with that, man, is he was on Dennis Miller, and it was hilarious, man. I was a subscriber to Dennis Miller. I still like Dennis Miller. I mean, he's a great comic, and he's just epic in a lot of ways. But the funniest thing was what happened is this will make you laugh, man. When I bodyguarded him, I called in and I mentioned it. I got in the war room. I have a picture, and a picture of the team. They bodyguarded him. It wasn't just me. And then the other thing is I have a real he signed because he wasn't allowed to sign anything in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But he had a card that he gave out to everybody, and I have that card too.
Oh,
and
okay.
back in, I don't know, it was mid-90s, I went to some guy who takes pictures and stuff, and we'll give you money for them or whatever. And the guy's like, oh, it's worth about this much money. And I was like, I'm not selling you that for that, you know, needed money. And he laughed at me. And he's like, well, you're not going to get nothing more for that. And I'm like, okay. But I did get something from it, because when Dennis Miller had him on, he was talking about his banjo band.
Yeah.
When he had him on, I called up. And I said, do you remember me? And he's like, yeah. I remember you guys. That was a great time. And the movie he made after that was Sergeant Bilko. That's the movie that came out of his time with the USO there. So that's just something to throw out. I'll throw up a picture from the Cold War era.
See, when I was in Iraq, we got shafted. We were at Fob Mahmadiyah, which was just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, so we never got USO. But on the way out, when we went to Baghdad, I remember there were some comedians from Comedy Central, ones that were pretty funny too. And I was kind of excited to go, but you know how sometimes when you move around within a place like that, it's really easy to get sick, like all the different bugs around. And like me and like just a handful of other guys end up just getting, just sicker than a dog basically for a couple days, and had to miss it. So I never got a chance to go to any USO shows.
Oh, I get it.
I remember the Vandals, which was kind of funny. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're kind of an older punk band. And, that's kind of a lot of the music that I like. I remember hearing about them playing a USO show while I was out there, but, of course, not being able to go, even though they were 20 miles down the road or whatever. It's kind of a funny feeling. Yeah, but
it kind of shape shifts. I mean, I was old punk, dude. My punk back in the day was, this is in the 80s, dude, so you're going to so laugh at me. I used to listen to Dead Kennedys.
Oh, yeah.
I would listen to Henry Rollins, and I can't think of the name of the daggone...
Black Flag.
Black Flag, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would listen to... I would even listen to, because it was a good... Actually, they had a lot of good stuff, and it was Screwdriver. And they had some... I'll tell you what, for the Blood and the Honor, that thing was a driver. So I can't hate on any of that. I mean... Yeah,
Hail to New Dawn was a good album.
Yeah. I mean, people forget what punk was. And then I started getting into spoken word with Henry Rollins, Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys. Started jamming into that because spoken word was awesome. It's just their experience. And now what's funny is we get to do that. We're doing spoken word right now about our fun experiences.
Yeah, this is amazing. Yeah. I mean, it really is if you think about it. What we're doing right now and what we would have had to do this, say, just 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it wouldn't have happened.
It'd be like get out of ham radio or something, or, I don't even know.
Yeah. No, and I'm a licensed ham. KC8UOI 73s for any of you guys who are hams. That's me. And if you are, that'd be awesome. So yeah, I never got into that. I mean, I used to play around with shortwave, like listening to that, but never got into ham radio. You know what? Now it's easy, man. It's no code. You don't even have to have any code anymore. You don't have to learn how to go ... d. You don't have to do that now, man. It's so awesome now. And it's so easy to get your license as a technician class. So you may want to try to do that.
Yeah, I know there's some people in the area I could talk to. That could kind of point me in the right directions.
Yeah, that's it. It's all about local thing. Honestly, folks, if you want to... if you guys want to honestly get into something, then that's the thing I would suggest, man. Ham radio, the people are friendly. Uh, they'll always help you for your ham. They'll give you good deals on. They have these ham fest where you can get good radios for your vehicles. These are things that if you're going to start prepping, at least you're going to get real-time news, and you will get it on ham. Even AM falls short. There's a reason why the ARRL, the American Radio Relay League, I'm a member of it, has an emergency service, and you can join that. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. So that's my thoughts on it. I'm gonna let you run with it for a second, brother. I got to
All right.
bounce for a couple minutes. I'm gonna turn my mic off.
All right. So on the chat, we're talking about punk. So you got the last few years of decent hardcore in the late 90s and early 2000s. Everything is just drop tune sludge right now. I digress, but all it's the same. Yeah, to be honest, there's not really a lot going on in that world that's really interested me. And boy, now you say it, I can't remember the last time I bought a new like punk album. Oi, Forest Former Skins. Okay, yeah, you're on to me. Yeah, I love Coxbar, Last Resort, Combat 84. It's always some good music there. But yeah, I was I'm 36 right now. So my teenage years, were kind of mid 90s, late 90s, so forth. That was a pretty good time for that. We had a good club here in town, and like I remember seeing Agnostic Front come through a few times. Dropkick Murphys, kind of before they hit it big, like what you posted there earlier. U.S. Bombs would come through quite a bit. Okay, yeah, so yeah, 38, so yeah, just about the same age there.
Good stuff, man.
Last album was The Damned. Huh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Terror. Yeah, I've seen Terror.
Yeah.
See, I had a lot of friends that were into hardcore, but I don't know. I never really scratched the surface on it. No pun intended, I guess. Sick of it all joke.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that on purpose either.
I know it was. I saw you walk right into it, man. It was great. That was phenomenal.
Or here's maybe a little blast from the past. Since you're from Ohio and we're talking hardcore and stuff. One Life Crew. Any thoughts on them?
Well, them and what was the other band? Oh my goodness.
Nice.
Trying to think. There was another band. I think it was from Arizona actually, but they played here all the time, and they were called Useless Pieces of Shit, UPS. And, yeah, they both rocked so hard. Yes, Integrity from Cleveland.
Integrity,
yeah. They any venue you went to, Integrity rocked the house. But see, here's where punk came from, and thank God you millennials and you Gen Zers are getting it right now. Punk is reemerging. I mean, real punk. We're not talking the fake fraudulent crap. We're talking about, look, Patty Tarleton. People will say, well, he's folk and this, that, and the other. No. Punk encompassed so much that nobody... Hey, Bolt Gun, I'm not from Ross County. I'm from Madison. But punk will never be dead, D. Augustine. Like I said, Bolt Gun, I rebroadcast right off the... right across the street, there's the courthouse clock in Madison County, and that's where I rebroadcast out of. That's a little play on words that I've done for a long time. I rebroadcast off their clock tower. I hope you get the joke. But yeah, man, I mean, there's so much punk going on right now. Vandals, Seiko Vandal, and you guys should listen, even if you disagree with their politics, you should listen to Vandal Void, their music, because I'm going to tell you why I'm showing for them. They're Marines. It doesn't matter their politics. I may not agree with them. They may not agree with me. I agree with them more than most because I respect the men. And that's how it used to be in America. We respected men because they were men. It didn't matter politics. And that's something we might want to touch on. Even during the Cold War, I don't remember a time when men didn't respect men just over politics. And I've talked with my brother Georgios, who's I went to high school with, and all the other people, but I've had him on my podcast. I've had Dano on my podcast. I didn't go to high school with him. But these people I've had on, and they disagree vehemently with me. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think the way I see this sometimes is it's not so much what people think, it's kind of why they think it. There are people that I agree with politically on a lot of things, but I think they do it for the wrong reasons, or just the way they came to the conclusions, I'm a little iffy about. But there's people that disagree with me on things that, I think are genuine.
Right.
And, you can kind of put yourself in their shoes maybe and see why they think these kind of things. And, appreciate it, I guess, a little bit more. So I don't know, just, agreeing with me politically doesn't necessarily get you in the door, automatically in the door, right. I guess, with me. But, so yeah, I don't know, just everybody's, you got to look at sometimes the why, not necessarily the final conclusion, I guess, Well,
it's the who, what, where, when, why, and how.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
yeah.
That's what every investigator. I did a video that got interrupted because I had an emergency call, and that was the whole purpose of that. And there are some times that you might not know the exact who. You'll know the what happened. You'll know when it happened. Normally, unless there's somebody like Kuklinski that freezes bodies, you may never know the why, and you may not know the where, because there could be a secondary crime scene. But you'll know the how. Even if it doesn't look like you know the how, you'll find out what the how is. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
And I go on a big thing. Sam Hyde brought up a good comment, and I do want to expound on that. I really do think most sides of the political spectrum have something to offer. If only people could come to the table and deal in good faith. And you are exactly right. Good faith is what's lacking. I can disagree with somebody vehemently, and so could probably Mr. Lewellin. We could probably disagree with somebody vehemently. But if we understand it's in good faith, and they're not trying to, I don't know, throw us as being abnormal or some freaky crap, which we're seeing now in the political spectrum. Everybody's a Nazi. And honestly, my thought is you own it. You say, okay, not only am I a neo-Nazi, I'm not a neo-Nazi. Shut your mouth. I'm a ardent Nazi. And now let's have a conversation. That's where I
keep true to the original movement.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of backstory you don't know on me, but my Opa, my grandfather. But that's what I'm saying. I make it a joke, but I do say that to people. And there was a guy, a great dude, man, loved the dude forever. And this is right after the election, and he's like, he's a fascist, this, that, and the other. And this guy I've known for years. in my town. I've lived here 20, shit, well, however old my son is. I'm not getting into that. 20 or so years, okay? And never had an issue till this election. He goes, I don't like fascists, and we're just hanging out, me and my wife. And we're friends with him, and he knew my uncle. I mean, there's a lot of backstory. And the funniest part is, I look at him and I said, yeah, I'm a fascist. Okay, fine. Let's have a conversation. We always talked about bicycles. I love to ride, bicycles. And motorcycles. I mean, anything with wheels, I'm all about that shit. And I just laughed. And because he was like, you got a point. And he's a former Army veteran from the Cold War and a good man. I'm not bringing his name up because I don't need to.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. This whole dichotomy we have right now with politics has gotten so stupid. I trust him as much as I trust my other men. Now, would I mix the men that I know on different avenues with him? No. That would be retarded. But, I've gone certain places, looked at certain things, because I want to know the truth. And I've found truth. And I know the facts. That's what nobody's doing right now. They're not and this is the time when you can do it. You have the internet. Guess what? You've never seen me punch right. I will never do that. And I haven't really punched left when I know I could. So, for some reason, we've lost the genteelness of America. Does that make sense to you, Ryan?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I guess I kind of wonder too if it has something to do with, like you said, we have the internet. We have so many outlets to do it with, I guess, fewer social consequences, maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
depending on what side you're on. Like you said earlier, and you were very correct, there is a lean to go after the right.
Yeah.
There's some shading happening to the right, but yet Antifa on the left, and trust me, I've investigated them hard. And a brother of mine actually had a post up on enemies from within. Guess what happened after Charlottesville? They took that post down. So all my investigations and everything, I still have it, but the public doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
But I know who Antifa and who ARA, which is their political public force, and I'm going to be very blunt on this right now. It's the first time I'm going to talk about it. I haven't talked about it ever publicly, but I will. One of the major people, I used to call her Mrs. Green Teeth, because she is. It's Mary Jo Kilroy. She was a flipping congresswoman from our state.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she's a big advocate for ARA.
See, the way I always saw ARA and Antifa was just something more kind of nebulous, where it may not be like a real organization. It's maybe like a
no, it's organized.
Is it?
Very Soros funded.
Okay.
That's why you have a congresswoman involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done the research. I'm not going to get into it.
Is that a recent update?
No, that was back in 2015.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, I know like in Europe they've been a thing for a while, and I'm sure that's kind of more organized. But in the U.S., it seemed like more like people would wear like a button or a patch or something of this, and it just kind of more stating that this is kind of how I think, as opposed to being like a member of something, if that makes sense.
It may be here in the U.S., in all honesty, that may be correct. Okay, I'm going to not throw any shade on you. It
Oh
may
yeah,
be very
yeah,
correct
yeah.
on college campuses. That's what they're doing.
Mhm.
But in reality, it is Soros funded. And that's the funniest part, man. People forget the 60 Minutes interview with Soros. And I know everybody hates Alex Jones. Alex Jones, whatever, right? But Alex Jones is very correct when he says Soros is a Nazi collaborator. He was a legit Nazi collaborator. And he said in that 60-minute interview how much fun he had during that time taking the stuff from his fellow Jews. So what's worse? A dude that's benefiting and now he's destabilized what? England? Indonesia?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're seeing the enemies from within was pulled down off the internet. I wonder why that is. Because I named high-level players in Ohio, and John Kasich, guess what? I know about you too, buddy. Our governor. I'm very clued in. And, you know, I'm not getting into my backstory. You know what it is, Mr. Lewellin. We were very honest, and I'm always going to be honest. I'm not going to lie. Honest, integrity, truth. These are the things that men have with each other. And if you don't have that, guess what? You're failing. And I would be failing. And the worst part is if I don't do it to myself. Now, I have lied in my life, unfortunately, mostly when I was a Fed. And I've even done it to try to suss out people.
Yeah.
People that, if you only knew, several people try to claim crap, and then all of a sudden I'll claim the same crap, but I'll deep dive, but they don't know what I'm doing. And I'll figure it out. And I'll let the people know that need to know. That's it. I'm not going to put it out in public. I don't have to do that. But they know when I know it. And that's a fact. So, what's your opinion on Soros and whatnot?
Not a very high one.
Okay.
Yeah, he's kind of a real scummy opportunist. The world would be better off without him. Yeah, I don't know. He's just, really bad guy.
Two things that are awesome I just saw. Love it. D. Augustine. Soros collaborating with the Nazis and Hungarian Arrow Cross members. You're exactly right.
Yeah, and I mean, that just shows, I mean, he's an opportunist. He doesn't believe in shit, really. It's just kind of, he'll go where his bread's buttered. He doesn't really have convictions, other than some kind of evil ones.
Right. And Bolt Gun saying, I listen to AJ, Alex Jones. He just needs to burn a fatty and settle down a little bit. Well, first off, he did that on Joe Rogan. He didn't settle down a fuckwit. Wouldn't hurt to quit talking over his guests, answering the questions he just asked them. I would agree with you, Bolt Gun. I try not to do that, but Ryan might differ with me that I might have done that. So it does happen. But yeah, I don't know what evil is. I mean, unless you're talking about Soros. So Bolt Gun, you might want to clear that up. Unless you think Alex Jones is evil. I don't think he's evil. I think he's trying to get at the facts.
Kind of maybe a little bit in Alex Jones's defense here. I kind of wonder sometimes on these shows when they answer the questions for him, if, since they're so constrained on time, a lot of times, especially like, if you think about like Fox, CNN, and so forth, if sometimes they do that to just kind of like move things along.
I thought that,
Just from like a production standpoint, a little bit.
I think that too, and Bolt Gun cleared it up. Soros is evil, not AJ. No, like I think I think you're exactly correct, and I think it's wrong-headed. But he's still controlled. I mean, me and you are having a relaxed. Every one of these 93 people on my page are chilling. We're drinking libations. We're drinking coffee, tea. It matters not. And we're having a big seat on my big orange couch in the war room, the physical manifestation of the war room. And we're having an honest conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, we can kind of do what we want, for as long as we want, or as short as we want, or what.
Yeah.
Whereas,
you could bounce, I could bounce, it could be over, and it's all fine. I don't handcuff anybody to my page, nor do I want to. I just enjoy the conversation, and I don't have to agree with anybody, and I don't think anybody I've ever had has to agree with me. That's the biggest difference. I remember when Steve Pasimic, and here's a biggie, when he went on AJ today, look, here's the reality. In Florida, when I'm going to give you a very brief knowledge of how I know him and whatever, but Pasimic's a real deal. He's a good dude in a lot of ways. I'm not going to get into why I know this, but it's for real.
Okay.
And when Richard Spencer went to Florida, that university there, Pasimic knows who I am or what I do, right? And why I'm doing it. And there are people that saying, wow, he's woke on this last thing, right? And I'm like, don't think that. Don't think that. There's a part of woke that people don't want to buy into. And I'm not getting into the specifics, but they will not buy into it on what they do. Because they don't want their name associated with it. Because all of a sudden it becomes something else. Okay? And
okay, I think I'm tracking.
I'm pretty sure you are. And the one thing a brother of mine pointed out to me, it was so funny when he did it. He was like, Kaiser just got slammed because they had a big ban on umbrellas coming to that place. Well, that ban was not there for other places I've been, but he saw my face on 2 documentaries. One by CNN, one by Vice. Unfortunately, I was captured not with my primary. I mean, I was in one of them. I screenshotted that and cut the other moron out. But I was captured with a moron. And I'll always say that. I won't say his name because I don't punch right. I don't care how far right they are. I'm not going to punch to them. The left doesn't punch to how far left communist people are. Why should I punch right?
Right, yeah.
I don't have to agree with people. But if I get captured with them, I'm okay, whatever. I was there. And that happened in Seaville, So, people know only what they want to know. And they'll believe what they want to believe. And the argument is retarded if you go and have it, because you're not going to come out better from it. You just have to deal with it. And the same with the Cold War thing that we were talking about. The Cold War never, the only time I ever saw this an issue is after, I remember November 9th 1989, that's the date when the wall fell. I was a Marine and not in Berlin when that wall fell. And I did a podcast on that. And just for clarity's sake, on this video we're doing, Red Ice Radio did an outstanding summation on what's going on right now with, and I linked to it, to Red Ice, because I want to give them credit. Heinrich and Lana do a great job. What I'm saying is, it's just like when the wall fell. ABC, NBC, all of them. I posted it as a link, and it was not giving them credit because it wasn't from them. It was from another source. When the wall fell. Sam Donaldson, I can't think of the dude from CBS's name right now. He ended up being a liar and got kicked out. Same with
the helicopter guy, or the guy got shot down from the helicopter. Why can't I think of his name?
Oh, I can't think of it either.
I could see a picture of the guy in my head,
yeah,
but
it's not coming to me either. It may, like everything, it may just get lost in the boomer fog.
Yeah, he doesn't matter. They're interchangeable.
They are. And he was the one who did the. He got shamed because he lied about Bush W, not HW, but Bush W's National Guard service.
Oh yeah.
I can't think of his name. Anyways, he's on there. He was a big foreign correspondent. CNN was big back then too. Christiane Amanpour, I think, was in on that. And then I closed. I couldn't use the whole video because I would have gotten show it off my YouTube. But what I did do was the end of the song from Scorpions. The video where either female talking, and it was sort of a slam on the flat earthers. You know, about how the big blue marble looks from outer space.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I did contract with, full disclosure, I did contract as a Fed. I didn't really contract, but as a Fed, I did do work at NASA, security stuff. I'm not getting into that. But, I mean, I'm wearing a NASA shirt tonight. I think you saw it earlier when we were talking face to face.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, it doesn't make you any better or any worse. You know, I've been to FLETC, a Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. I've trained at Kroll. I've trained at so many different places, man. It seems like my life's just been training for what? I don't know. How much money did the government spend? I don't know, honestly. At this point, I don't. My son told me his training was like $250,000 for his training. Maybe that's true. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of costs go into it, you know. So,
but who knows? But I get paid X amount of dollars for X amount of work. So what's more efficient? Here's something I want to buzz by you because you're a very critical thinker, Mr. Lewellin. I believe that contractors, during the Gulf War, it was one contractor per 100.
Yeah.
And I found this out when I got captured in a documentary called, what was it called? It was after RYP did his License to Kill in the War on Terror. It was, it's made by Purpose Built Films, and it was called Shadow Company. That's what it was called. You'll see me racking a 50.
Okay.
And then later, they fuzzed my face. I was working for SAIC at the time. And so they fuzzed my face. I'm shooting a MP5. I shoot a few weapons during this time. And they capture it on film, whatever. It was for their little jollies, whatever. And then they do capture my face later in a mamba, a white mamba. Red Irish, if you remember what Red Irish is in Baghdad.
No, I guess, yeah, I never was on that.
Okay. Red Irish was the place where most of the attacks happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, during '05. And
Yeah, see, yeah, I was mainly like when in Mamadia we were on foot most of the time, so we didn't get out. Like we went to some of the towns like around the area, but so like yeah, I just saw like that area pretty much.
Cool. But anyways, I get captured in this stuff. It's like I Forrest Gump myself to the world. I get to look at this shit when I get home. And I kind of find it funny. You know, I meet these people. Some of them I think are bags of shit. Some of them I think are good dudes. And the good dudes know who I think are good dudes. And I'm going to be honest with them always. The bags of shit, no, I think they're bags of shit. I actually told a doctor, well, he's called a doctor. I don't know if he really is, but whatever. Author of many books, and he likes to show them, and he'll talk to you about broccoli all day long and how to get gains by fasting. Figure that one out. Yeah, he's really fun. People who know him and have met him think the same thing, and it's always a script. He doesn't change a comma in his conversation. I'll tell you offline who it is.
All right.
And the funniest part to me is that these people think we really give a fuck. No matter who it is. And I have given... Look, if somebody's my client, I give a fuck about them. Because... Not because of them. They could be a total douche. And I'll give you an example. Mike Signer. That's what he likes to be called now, Mayor of Sewville.
Oh, okay.
How about I regarded him with Democracy International? I thought he was the campaign. Here's something people don't realize, and he tried to sell this to me, and I actually believed him. But he corrected me when I called him Mike Signer. He's like, that's not my name, it's Signer. And now he goes by Signer, right? And Pacific has correct evaluation on him. And I thought, well, you're kind of an ass, whatever, but we got along, everything went well. He came back alive. So did my other protectee, which I'll not bring her name into it. But then all of a sudden I see his acts as mayor and how he's a puppet for the Clintons and Terry McAuliffe.
Yeah.
I understand everything about him now. And so he's a bag of shit. So somebody can try to fool me, and he did. And he goes by Signer. When I called him that, it was like, dude, I poured acid on him. That's how he acted when I said, nice to meet you, Mike Signer. And I was the team leader of his security detail. And I'm like, oh, neat. You're going to correct me? And then I see what he did later. That's what I mean by institutional memory, brother.
Yeah.
Same thing, you know, there's a lot to be learned by books, but institutional memory, wow. It goes places, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Your opinion?
I guess I don't really have one. Sorry, I was just kind of listening and...
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to...
Oh, no,
I
no,
didn't
you're
try to
fine.
do an Alex Jones to you.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Yeah, I was just kind of just listening and taking it in and...
Cool. So what do you have to say about what's going on? Let's go back to the Cold War, man.
Okay.
I brought you on because you, I believe, as a millennial, have a lot to say on the Cold War. And that's the point of this whole thing. and we got to get repurposed back until you need to go. When you decide you need to go, and that's fine because you have a family. I once had one that was very young. Now my family's grown. I have a beautiful wife, but I no longer have a son that needs attention. So trust me,
Right.
I understand.
So yeah, I've got a 3-year-old and then a 10-month-old, so my hands are full usually. So
Isn't that beautiful?
it is, yeah, it is. It is fun times. So
it's beautiful, man. I mean, that's the thing I always tell people, man. Find your wife to be for your life and love them with everything you have, as I know you do. And,
yeah, I do what I can.
Well,
you know.
yeah, you do more than you can. I know that.
Yeah.
So that's the important part. And honestly, with the whole Cold War thing, that's what those hard men were trying to preserve. They were trying to preserve our families. And somehow we have decided, family, smamly. Doesn't matter. You can be a woman, have your own family. Doesn't make sense to you or I.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. I mean, just thinking back of what, people have done throughout time to get us to where we're at, to, well, just throw everything away.
Yeah.
Just to say, continuity doesn't matter or anything like that, and live in the now. It doesn't make sense when you think about it like that.
Well, people will probably disagree with me on this, but I'm going to tell you my thoughts. I just put a picture up of me and my chocolate chips. Assist, protect, defend our own. That meant something back in the day, both in the Army and the Marine Corps. And our own meant, at that time, our military people that were under us.
Right.
And we assisted them. They didn't know where they were at. We'd tell them how to get there. We protected them when they slept or whatever they were doing, right?
Yep.
And then we defended them when we needed to. And that meant it was real. That meant we defended them. And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the most blatant example I can give you. And it happened in Germany, Korea, it happened in Japan, it happened in a lot of places where if they came in a cab and all of a sudden the JPs, Japanese police, or the Korean, the Keisetsu, they came in, or the Koreans came in, the KPs, or you had Saudi National Police coming in wanting to arrest somebody, we would get them. They came in a cab, cops coming in. Okay. We would protect them and get them to their people. So that's basically my thoughts on it. Assist, protect, defend our own.
Yeah, I listened to your podcast. What was it, earlier in the week or was it last week?
I don't know.
Where you talked about your time as a military policeman and that phrase, or motto, I guess you would say: assist, protect, defend.
Yeah.
So it's just something to. I don't know. Like I never really dealt with the military police much, but I don't know. It's something I have thought of, kind of ruminated on a little bit. Assist, protect, defend.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with the Cold War. That's what those old hard guys did. They thought about assisting, protecting, and defending our own.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're not seeing it in Europe and a few states. You're not even seeing it in the U.S. That's kind of sad. So we'll just wrap this up. I'll talk to you offline for a couple seconds, and
Okay.
hopefully the people enjoyed this stream. The vlog, Ryan Lewellin, that's his name. Cold War. You go on and say it because you know it better than I do. On
Okay.
YouTube
Yeah. Yep. You can find me on iTunes under Cold War Cast, and I do a podcast about the history of the Cold War. Mainly, I try to do it through the perspective of the pop culture of the time. And you can also find me on Facebook under Ryan Lewellin or Cold War Cast, or minds.com under Cold War Cast. Or if you want to email me, ryan@coldwarcast.com.
Awesome. Well, like I said, we're about to go out. Give me a few seconds. Boomer Tech.
All right.
It's live. This is how this goes, guys. Oh my goodness. This is how this goes. Boomer Tech. Here we go. Love it. All right.
All right.